You almost dropped it in the donation bag. That little pin your mother wore, the one shaped like a flower, tarnished and forgotten in the bottom of a jewelry box. Your hand hovered over the bag, and you let it go. I need you to stop for a second, because brooches, these old pins nobody wears anymore, are being given away and tossed in the trash while quietly being worth hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. Nobody wears them today, so nobody thinks twice about letting them go. That is exactly why they vanish. And by the end of this, I am going to show you the single most valuable brooch of all, one that sold at a documented auction for more than most people earn in a year, and it started life pinned to an ordinary coat. This is not just about collectors. This is about what is sitting in a box in your closet right now. I have watched this happen too many times. Years ago, at an estate sale outside of Cincinnati, I stood next to a woman who had a shoebox of pins marked at $2 each. A dealer bought the whole box without blinking. One of those pins, I found out later, was worth more than the truck he drove away in. I never forgot it, and I never let it happen quietly again, so let me walk you through the ones I have seen almost lost, because the piece you are about to let go might be one of these. Let us start with something you have absolutely seen. The Victorian mourning brooch. Dark, heavy, often black, sometimes with a little compartment on the back. Most people look at these and think they are ugly, morbid, worthless costume junk. They almost always end up in the throwaway pile. But here is what those people miss. In the Victorian era, from roughly 1860 to 1900, families commissioned brooches to remember someone who had died. The best of these were made from a black material called jet, mined in Whitby, England. Real Whitby jet is warm to the touch, incredibly lightweight, and when you rub it gently, it can build a faint static charge. The cheap imitations, made of black glass, feel cold and heavy and do nothing. The tell is on the back. Many genuine mourning brooches hold a tiny woven lock of hair, sealed under glass, or a small photograph of the person who passed. People see the hair and get spooked and throw the whole thing away, but that woven hairwork is exactly what makes a collector pay. Genuine Whitby jet mourning brooches with intact hairwork have sold for between $300 and $800, and the elaborate carved examples climb well past $1,000. I watched one nearly go into a trash bag because a woman told me, and I quote, "It had dead person's hair in it and gave her the creeps. It was jet. It was real. It was worth $600. So you can catch that one now. You know to feel the weight, feel the warmth, check the back, relief. But the next one is far more common in American homes, and people throw it out for the opposite reason. They think it is too pretty to be old. I am talking about the cameo, that carved profile of a woman's face, usually cream against a peach or coral background. You have seen 100 of them. They look like something from a gift shop. And that is precisely the problem, because the gift shop versions are worthless, and the real ones are not, and they look almost identical across the room. Here is how you tell them apart, and this is the part nobody teaches you. A cheap, modern cameo is molded plastic or resin. It is perfectly smooth, perfectly even, and often glued into its frame. A genuine antique cameo, carved from shell or from hardstone in places like Torre del Greco, Italy, in the 1800s, has a subtle unevenness. Hold it up to a strong light. A real shell cameo will glow slightly translucent at the thin edges, and you will often see fine hairline cracks in the shell, called crazing, that a mold can never fake. Turn it over. The back of a genuine shell cameo is concave, scooped out, and you can sometimes see the natural curve of the shell it was cut from. Plastic backs are flat and hollow. That one detail separates a $5 yard sale pin from a piece worth $200 to $900, and the finest hardstone cameos set in gold have crossed the auction block for several thousand. A woman wrote to me describing a cameo she had priced at $1 for her garage sale. She held it to a lamp on my advice. The edges glowed, the back was scooped. She pulled it off the table. It appraised at $450. Therefore, do not trust your eyes at a distance. Trust the light and the back. That is your defense. But now I want to talk about the brooches people fear are fake, because they look too good. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable. The rhinestone brooch. Big, sparkling, dramatic, the kind of thing your grandmother wore to church. Most people assume anything that flashy has to be cheap costume glass, worth a couple of dollars at most. So into the donation bin it goes, jangling with the buttons and the broken necklaces. Here is the truth that costs people real money. Some of the most valuable brooches in American history are costume jewelry, not gold, not diamonds, glass and base metal, made by designers whose names turn a $2 pin into a $400 one. The name to burn into your memory is Eisenberg. In the 1930s and 40s, Eisenberg original brooches were made with the finest Austrian crystal available. Stones so clear and well cut, they rival real gemstones under light. Early Eisenberg pieces are marked with a script signature, and some early ones carry a tiny block letter E. Those early Eisenberg original brooches regularly sell for $200 to $600, and rare figural designs have gone for over $1,000. Then there is Trifari, especially the pieces designed by Alfred Philippe. Look for the crown mark, a capital T with a little crown sitting above it, sometimes marked Trifari with the crown over the letters. The famous Trifari crown brooches and the frosted glass jelly belly designs, little animals with a clear, rounded belly from the 1940s, have sold for hundreds. A jelly belly in the right form has cost $400 to $800. And here is where it turns. These pieces get overlooked because no one is trained to flip a brooch over and read the tiny mark on the back. But there are people who count on exactly that. Dealers who walk the estate sales knowing you will price the sparkly pin at $3 because you assume it is glass. They read the back. You did not. That difference goes straight into their pocket. I saw it happen at a church rummage table in Ohio. A whole tray of rhinestone pins, 50 cents each. A man flipped through them fast, pulled 3, paid $1.50, and walked out. 2 of those 3 were signed. He knew. The volunteers running the table did not. So, before you let a single sparkly brooch leave your house, turn it over and look for a name. Eisenberg, Trifari, Corot, Weiss, Boucher. Those names are money. Relief, again, because now you know to look. And if this way of seeing things, learning to read the hidden signals before something valuable walks out the door forever, is something you want to go deeper on, I put everything I know into a book called Hidden Value. It covers not just brooches, but the full picture of overlooked objects that pass through ordinary hands every single day without anyone recognizing what they are holding. The pieces I could not fit into a single video, the details that take years to learn and cost people dearly when they do not know them, they are all there. If you want to keep more of what your family has already paid for, Hidden Value is where I would start. You can find it linked in the description. But this next one is the one I promised, the part for you specifically, and I mean you, the one who is certain your boxes hold nothing but junk. Maybe you are watching this thinking your mother never owned anything nice, no designer pieces, no gold, just a tangle of old pins you have been meaning to throw out for years. This next part is for you, because the most overlooked valuable brooches do not look valuable at all, and you can check for them tonight with nothing but your own 2 hands and a lamp. Here is exactly what to do. Go find that box. Dump the pins out on a table under good light. Now, one by one, do 3 things. First, feel the weight. Pick up each brooch and let it sit in your palm. Real silver and gold and even good quality base metal have a density that feels serious, substantial. Cheap modern junk feels like nothing, like a bottle cap. That heft in your hand is the first clue you are holding something real. Second, find the clasp on the back and look at what kind it is. This is the single best trick for dating a brooch, and almost no one knows it. If the pin closes with a long C-shaped hook, a simple curved piece of metal with no spring, that brooch was almost certainly made before 1910. That is a Victorian or Edwardian piece. If it has what is called a trombone clasp, a little tube you pull out to open. It is likely European and often from the early 1900s. The modern safety catch, the rolling round lever you flip, came into wide use later. That old C clasp on the back is a fingerprint of age. When you feel it, you are holding history. Third, hunt for the mark. Turn the brooch over and look at every surface. The pin stem, the edge of the frame, the back plate. You are looking for tiny stamps. Numbers like 800 or 925 tell you it is silver. The word sterling means silver too. A tiny stamp reading 14K or 10K means gold. And any name or signature, even worn and faint, is worth writing down and searching. Do this tonight. Weight, clasp, mark, 3 things. Your own hands. I have had people write to me the very next morning saying they found sterling and a signature on a pin they had scheduled for the donation truck. One woman found a 925 silver mark on a pin she had been using to hold a hole in a sweater. That pin was worth $90. She had been wearing her rent money to patch a hole. So now you have a method. But the pieces get more valuable from here and closer to home. Because the next brooch is one so plain, so unremarkable, that people cannot believe it matters. The bar brooch, just a straight horizontal bar of metal, maybe with a small stone or a bit of engraving in the center. Grandmothers wore them on their collars. They look like nothing. They get swept into the junk pile without a second glance. But many of these plain bar brooches, made from around 1890 through the 1920s, are solid 10-carat or 14-karat gold. In that era, a simple gold bar pin was a common gift, an anniversary present, a graduation token. They were understated on purpose. That very plainness is why they survive unnoticed today. Check the back for that 10K or 14K stamp. A plain gold bar brooch, even a modest one, carries real gold value alone, often $80 to $200 in melt. And if it holds a genuine seed pearl row or a small old cut diamond, the collectible value climbs higher. I have seen a plain little bar pin, dismissed as nothing, weigh in as solid 14-karat gold and sell for $170. Therefore the rule holds. Plain does not mean worthless. Plain is often the disguise. But if plain fools people, the next one fools them by looking broken. I am talking about enamel brooches, especially the ones where the color has chipped or the surface looks worn. People see a chip and assume damage, worthlessness, garbage, into the bin. But some of the most collectible brooches ever made are enamel, and here is a name that should stop you cold. Norway, Scandinavian enamel. In the mid-1900s, Norwegian and Danish makers produced sterling silver brooches coated in a brilliant glassy enamel, often shaped like leaves, butterflies, flowers, or in guilloche patterns with a shimmering sunburst underneath the color. Look for makers like David Anderson, marked with the letters D.A., or Hror Prids, or Ivar Holth. These are marked sterling on the back, often with Norway, and sometimes with a small maker's stamp. A David Anderson sterling enamel butterfly brooch, even with lightware, sells for $80 to $250. The larger and more intricate leaf and floral pieces reach higher, and a full set, brooch with matching earrings, climbs well past $300. The blues and greens are the ones collectors chase hardest. I once watched someone sort a jewelry box and toss a small enameled leaf pin into the throwaway dish because, she said, the color was flaking on one edge. It was David Anderson. It was sterling. That one flaking leaf was worth $120. She had it in the trash dish for a chipped edge the size of a grain of rice. So a chip is not the end of value. Often it is just proof the piece is old enough to matter. Relief. But hold on to that feeling, because now we climb higher. The next brooch people lose is the one they mistake for a child's toy or a joke. The Figural brooch. A little animal, a bug, a flower basket, a bird. Whimsical, silly looking, easy to dismiss as a plastic novelty from a cereal box, and that is precisely how fortunes walk out the door. because some of the most sought-after brooches in the world are figural designs from the great costume houses. Remember the Trifari crown mark I told you about? Now add Coro, and specifically the Coro Duet, a clever brooch that splits into two separate clips, marked Coro Duet on the back with a patent number. Add the name Corocraft, their higher-end line. Sterling Corocraft figural brooches from the 1940s, especially the enameled animals and the flower designs, have sold for $200 to $600. And then there is Marcel Boucher, a former Cartier designer who brought fine jewelry craftsmanship to costume pieces. His marked Boucher brooches, often with a number, can command several $100s, and his rare bird and figural designs from the 1940s have reached over $1,000 at auction. Here is the antagonist again, sharper now. There are buyers who walk into estate sales hoping to find a tray of figural pins priced like toys. They know a Corocraft flower or a Boucher bird is worth a car payment. They are counting on you seeing a cute little animal and pricing it at $1. Every time that happens, the difference, sometimes $500 or more, moves from your family to a stranger who simply knew to read the back. I watched a table at a sale in Kentucky where a whole dish of figural pins sat at $1 apiece. A woman with a jeweler's loop went through them one at a time, unhurried, and pulled out 4. She knew. The family did not. I have thought about that dish for years. So the little animal pin is not a toy. Flip it. Read it. Boucher, Corocraft, Coro Duet. Those names are the difference between $1 and $500. But we are not at the top yet, because the next material fools almost everyone, and I mean nearly everyone lets it go. Bakelite, early plastic, made from the 1920s through the 40s, molded and carved into brooches, especially fruits, vegetables, animals, and bold geometric shapes in deep reds, butterscotch yellows, and rich greens. People throw Bakelite away constantly because they think, correctly, that it is plastic, and they assume all plastic is worthless. That assumption has cost families dearly. Genuine Bakelite is dense and warm, and it has a specific test. Rub the piece hard with your thumb until it heats up, then smell it. Real Bakelite gives off a faint chemical smell, sometimes described as camphor or an old formaldehyde note. Some people run it under hot water and catch the same smell. Modern plastic smells like nothing, or like plastic. That smell test is decades old and jewelers still swear by it. A simple Bakelite bangle or pin might be modest, but the carved figural Bakelite brooches, a bunch of carved cherries, a horse head, a deeply carved floral, sell for $100 to $500, and the rare pieces, the elaborate carved and pierced designs, or the highly prized deep red, often called oxblood, have sold for over $1,000. Collectors are relentless about Bakelite. I knew a man clearing his aunt's apartment who filled a garbage bag with what he called old cheap plastic jewelry. Something made me ask him to stop. We rubbed one red cherry pin warm and smelled it. Camphor. It was Bakelite. That bag of cheap plastic held over $400 in carved pieces headed straight for the dumpster. So plastic is not automatically trash. Warm it, smell it, that is your test, and it costs you nothing. Relief. But now we are near the very top, and the fear should be at its sharpest, because what comes next is the one people give away most confidently of all. The tiny plain gold pin with the seed pearls, or the little colored stone, the kind that looks Victorian and dainty and old-fashioned. People assume it is gold-plated, worth nothing, an old lady's trinket. They give these away without a flicker of doubt, because they cannot imagine something so small mattering. But these are often the real thing. Solid gold Victorian and Edwardian brooches, set with natural seed pearls, tiny old mine-cut diamonds, garnets, turquoise, or opals. The gold alone in a small 14-carat piece has real value, and once you add genuine old cut stones and the antique craftsmanship, the number climbs fast. A genuine Victorian 15-carat or 14-carat gold brooch with seed pearls and a small diamond sells for $200 to $700, and the finer ones with good stones reach well over 1,000. The clasp trick I taught you matters most here. That long C clasp on the back tells you it predates 1910. Combine a C clasp with a gold stamp and old cut stones, and you are almost certainly holding something worth hundreds that looks, to the untrained eye, like a dollar trinket. And now, the one I promised you from the very beginning, the single most valuable brooch of all, the one lost most often precisely because no one believes it is what it is. The natural pearl and diamond brooch, and more broadly, the antique brooch holding a stone that turns out to be extraordinary. Let me tell you about the case that documented sale records made famous, because it is the exact fear this whole video is built around. There was a brooch and a related class of pieces, where an old, unassuming family pin, passed down for generations, worn as ordinary costume, turned out to hold natural pearls. Not cultured pearls, the kind grown in farms today, but natural pearls formed by chance in the wild, which are astonishingly rare and can be worth more than diamonds by weight. Auction houses like Christie's and Sotheby's have documented antique natural pearl brooches selling for tens of thousands of dollars, and the truly exceptional natural pearl pieces have crossed into the hundreds of thousands. The way you separate a natural pearl brooch from a common one lives, again, in the details I have been teaching you all along: the age of the setting, the C-clasp, the hand craftsmanship, the gold or high silver mark. An old brooch with a genuine large pearl, set in fine antique gold, with that pre-1910 clasp, is exactly the kind of piece that has been mistaken for junk and nearly given away, then recognized by one person who knew to look closer, and sold for a life-changing sum. That is the small miracle at the heart of every one of these stories. The piece was headed out the door, sometimes for generations, worn without a thought, priced at $1, dropped toward a donation bag. And then one person turned it over, felt the weight, found the clasp, read the mark, held it to the light, and stopped the loss just in time. You can be that person this weekend. You do not need an appraiser to start. You need a lamp, your 2 hands, and the 3 steps I gave you: weight, clasp, mark. Then, for anything that passes, take it to a reputable jeweler or an auction house for a real appraisal before you ever let it go. Do not sell to the first person who offers you cash at your own kitchen table. The whole trick that has drained value from families for decades is speed and your own doubt. Slow down, turn it over. Here is what I want you to feel right now. Not fear anymore. Relief. Because whatever is in that box in your closet, you now know how to catch it before it is gone forever. You are the kind of person who refuses to let something valuable slip away for nothing. That instinct that made you click, that little voice that said, wait, check first, that is exactly the instinct that saves these pieces. So tell me, which brooch made your stomach drop just now? Was it the mourning pin with the hair on the back you almost threw out? The sparkly rhinestone one you assumed was glass? The little plastic cherries you thought were a toy? Or is there one specific pin sitting in a box in your house right now that you are going to go check tonight? Tell me in the comments which one you are going to find and turn over. I read them, and I want to know what you almost lost. And if you refuse to keep losing the value hiding in your own home, join the people who are learning to look closer before they let go. Because the next thing I want to show you is even easier to overlook than a brooch. It is the old wristwatch sitting in a drawer, stopped, dusty, dismissed as broken, with one tiny word on the dial that turns it into thousands. Do not let that one go either. Stay with me and turn everything over first. I'm going to stop you right there, because we barely scratched the surface. Inside the Hidden Treasure Circle, I show you the full authentication method on that very pin you almost donated. And you can ask me your own question. A real person, me, answers you myself. You belong in here with us. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel any time.